This woman was sick and tired, and this is what's so amazing about this scripture text, is it tells us it's because she'd been bleeding for 12 years. They call it hemorrhaging. Any women in this building ever felt like that? Yes, it means exactly what you think it means. She had her period for 12 years. Now, I know it upsets your New England sensibilities that we would discuss such things in public, much less in church. It's in the book, people. We talk about what's in the book. But also, this is still in the book from first century Palestine, which would have made it even more taboo. It's a miracle we have a story about a woman, and it's even a bigger miracle they didn't cut it out because it's about a woman who bleeds and doesn't stop bleeding. My grandmother, Jenny, my mother's mother, almost bled to death because they could not make her stop right in front of my mother in the living room. And that wasn't in first century Palestine, that was just 60 years ago. Now, in this time period, any woman who bleeds, which most of us do regularly until you get my age and then it gets weird, are considered unclean. And still today in Orthodox Judaism, once a woman's period stops, she has to go and wash herself in the mikveh. There's a little pool in front of the synagogue where you have to go. And that way you could be clean before she would go into the temple in the synagogue and pray. Now, this woman in our story could never do that because she never stopped bleeding. She was never considered clean. She could never go to the mikveh. So she was outcast. She was rejected. She couldn't even get into the mikveh. She was ostracized by her community, shunned. So she went to the market. She went to the water well when no one else would be there. She didn't even bother showing up at the temple. Much less could she not go toward men. That was an abomination under all the Levitical law. You did not go near a man if you're bleeding. She had done all she could. She took the little bit of money she had. She had gone to every doctor that she knew. She had spent all her money on them, and she just got worse. Now think about how she felt physically. She was exhausted. She's probably iron deficient. Think how she felt emotionally. She was rejected by her own people, rejected by the religion, whispered about by her neighbors. She was altogether alone. She was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, she had heard about this fella, this Jesus fella, this teacher, this rabbi, and how he had this remarkable effect on people. So she said, okay, because she talked to herself since no one else would talk to her. Okay, I'll go to him. He'll help me. Now, she summons her courage. She cleans up the best she can. And she goes where the crowds had gathered to see this Jesus. What she didn't know is everybody else had shown up too. It was a mob scene. In the text it says he was jostled. Now, have you ever been in at a concert? I know you crazies go to all those wild things, yes. The Martinez's know. But have you ever been in a crowd or when you're leaving, leaving an event and you got all these people kind of pushing all around you? I don't like it. Even with me, it's in my space. Or on an elevator, just too close. So Jesus was all jostled. He was too close. It was a mob scene. The crowd was pressing in on him. You could just hear her thoughts. I guess other people need him too. What will I do? But she said, I don't care. My resolve is firm. I'm going to figure out how to get close to him. Then she goes, well, okay. Say I can't get him to notice me. If I can just touch the hem of his garment, I know I'm going to feel better. Think of that. Just to touch the dusty, kind of this much at the bottom of his big cloak. She was determined. She wasn't asking for much. A little touch. So she pushes through the crowd, trying to get Jesus, trying to get to him unobserved. But again, of course, he had his bodyguards called the disciples all around him. I want you to look at the cover of your bulletin. Sade helped me pick this out. Right, Sade? And we picked this picture because can you see the woman's face? No. It's because this woman is all of us. All of us. All of us. So imagine this anemic, chronically ill woman squirming her way through legs and arms and sweaty bodies just to get within arm's length of this fella named Jesus. I mean, the push and pull of the crowd must have taken every ounce of energy she had, until finally she gets close enough to the bottom of his cloak, and she just kind of gets down on the ground, and she leans in as it sweeps over the dusty ground, and she goes, there, I did it. That will make me stronger. Okay, now I'll just back away. I'll slip home. Nobody will know that an unclean, bleeding woman just touched a holy man. But guess what? Jesus knew. All of a sudden, Jesus stopped. He turned. He's like, who touched me? And did you see the sarcastic disciples? I mean, these people have attitudes. They sort of retorted, what do you mean, stupid Jesus? Who touched you? It could have been anybody. Have you looked around? There are all these people pressing in. I mean, they just were mocking Jesus right there. We do that, don't we? Really, Jesus? You're going to help me? Ha! But Jesus knew something else had happened. That touch was intentional. Now, there are some key issues we have to appreciate to grasp the significance of this story. We must put ourselves into that world. We must look at the social and religious norms of Jesus' time. First, as I said, this gal's a woman. She had no rights, no value, except she could bear children. She was considered the property of the men who owned her. She was an incomplete version of humanity. Ugh. Just takes everything for me to even tell you all that, but that's the facts. The second, she was a woman who bled. Automatically, under the Leviticus code, as understood, she was impure, unsuitable. And anybody who touched her, who was near her, would be considered unclean as well. So those doctors took a risk. Jesus was put at risk. It reminds me of the early days of the AIDS pandemic. I buried a lot of my brothers, but they would not even be touched by a physician because they would then be at risk. But third, this woman, this unclean woman, touched a man. Women were not to make physical advances toward men. They were only passive recipients. And she fought and scratched her way to touch this fellow Jesus. But fourth, she touched a holy man. Jesus had a reputation. He was a wise teacher, a rabbi. He was a doer of miracles. That put him in a category above all the other men. And see, we just think we read this story, we're like, oh, it's so nice and quaint. Isn't that nice? A gal went and touched the edge of his garment. But this story, at the time it happened and the time it was written, was heresy. It was radical. It was subversion of every social norm. It was turning on the religion on its head. For the gospel writers, and then the editors, and then the people who made it into the Bible, for them to let this story even stay in, says how significant it is. Now let's talk about this gal for a minute. We know her condition. But let's talk about what she was like inside. A tad stubborn, tenacious, perseverance. She took responsibility for her own healing. She had courage that she summoned with every breath to reach out for the thing she knew she needed that would make her whole. She had courage. But you notice her courage could not stop just when she touched Jesus' garment. Because guess what? Jesus turned around and said, "Who touched me?" Now, she had options, because she could slink off into the crowd unnoticed. I mean, who would pay attention to a woman down on the ground touching people's hems? But she felt new. She felt revived. She stepped forward and had the courage to acknowledge it was her. She had audacity. She said, "Yep, it was me." She's at risk. She put Jesus at risk. She could have even left it at that. She could apologize and said, "Oh, sorry, didn't aim to touch your robe." Do a few Hail Marys and go back home. Yeah, that was a joke. No one got it. A Jewish woman would not have done a Hail Mary. Okay. I have so much work to do. But see, she had come face to face with her burden. She had looked it in the eye. She had the faith and the courage to stand tall. And so then, right in front of God and everybody, she told Jesus and all those crazy disciples about her whole bloody ordeal. She had courage twice. Imagine the tension. This impure, unclean woman touching this famous rabbi and then standing and having the audacity to say why. That is speaking truth to power. She could have been ridiculed and rejected even more. She could have been stoned to death. She could have never left her house again. She took the risk. Now, Jesus did the final scene of the story. He could have said, "Wow, look at me. Look what I did. I just healed that thing." Jesus never goes there. The first word he speaks to this woman is the most significant. Daughter. Daughter. Daughter means she's back in. She's clean again. She's acceptable. She's a member of the religious community again. Daughter, as he looks her into the eyes. Then he says this, "Go in peace. Your faith has made you well." You took a risk of faith, the Message version says, and now you're healed. You're whole. Go live well. Go live blessed. You did this. Jesus didn't scold her for touching him. He didn't rebuke her because she's a woman. He didn't say, "Now, your illness was caused because you were unfaithful or unclean or you did something sinful. He didn't go there. Illness doesn't happen that way. He didn't say, now, go get yourself checked out. Make sure everybody knows. He didn't even brag on himself. He just said, go in peace. This Semitic greeting of shalom. And it doesn't mean peace as an absence of violence. It means go live your life in wholeness. I love how the message says, live well, live blessed. You see, when he says your faith makes you well, Jesus is saying, listen, gal, you knew exactly what you needed, and you did everything you needed to get it. You faced your thing head on, and you changed it. I think this offers rich lessons for all of us. In those 3 short verses that we translate as healed, it actually, in Greek, is to liberate. It means the woman was liberated. Now, we talk about women's lib here, but I'm talking about your spiritual liberation. This story is more than about healing. It's about being set free from the thing you carry. It's about finding this thing that you drag around and ruin your life with and be able to let it go at the feet of Jesus. You see, in here, it's not just about Jesus liberating people. It's about the power this woman had inside of her, the courage it took to be free. See, we like the stuff we carry. It's familiar. We like the tug on our shoulders. We like the drag of our step as we carry all of our crap around. Be liberated, Jesus says. Be free. So there's a lesson for us as a church. Jesus affirmed this woman and puts out a vision for how the realm of God ought to be. That anybody the world says is unclean, unacceptable, not good enough, not the right color, not, I don't know, you got a bad record. They can't participate fully. Nonsense. Be free, Jesus says. Come on in. We cannot do it without you. Here, you can unload it. The woman who bleeds teaches us that we must welcome everybody. I don't care what they bring with them. We all got a story. And then we must help liberate others for whatever holds them back from a healthy life. It's not pretty. It's messy. But if we can just touch the hem of his garment, if we bring that Christ to others, we'll build the kingdom of God. I also think it has a couple of lessons for us, of those of us who claim that we follow Jesus. We are all that woman, even you men. We have to face our pain if you're going to heal from it. We have to go, what does the psalmist say? Out of the depths of the pain we call. We have to own it. We have to have that courage of faith that our lives could actually be different. That we don't have to live out of woundedness anymore. That we are worthy of being whole and healthy. You are worthy. And that we can find the healing. We have to reach out and touch what we need. We have to have the courage to do it. We must believe we can be whole, and we must know that Jesus says to each of us, daughter, son, you're in. You're loved. Your faith has made you well. Then we can go in peace. May that be so, friends. May it happen today.